Okay, we're ready to go, folks. I have following apologies for absence, I believe. Do we? You're looking as if we're not live. It says live on mine.
Oh, sorry, Chair, we are now live.
Yeah, okay. Okay, we have apologies from Adrian Chapman, Charlotte Black, Gary Howson, and Councillor Alex Malon. Okay, so we are quorate, yes? Got more than 4 people. Thank you very much. So I'll start the meeting. I would like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who are watching the live stream of this meeting via Cambridge County Council's website. There is also a risk that we may run into technical problems, and I would ask you for your patience if we do so. Should this occur, we will declare an adjournment while the fault is addressed, and the public broadcast will be paused. If it's not possible to address the fault, the meeting may be abandoned until such time as we can reconvene. And I remind members and officers that all virtual meetings are being recorded, and that recording of this meeting will be published on the Cambridgeshire County Council's website. So, are you going to do a roll call for me, please? Hello?
Oh, sorry, Chair, would you like me to do the roll call?
Well, I'm happy to do it. Shall I do it? Councillor Hickford, are you there?
Present, Chair.
Councillor Hudson?
Present.
Councillor Fitzgerald? Dr. Robin?
Present.
Wendy? Over? Wellborn?
Present.
Jan Thomas? No. Louise Camphor? Louise Mitchell?
Present.
Are you representing Jane, Louise?
Representing the CCG.
Yeah, okay. Balmore?
Yes, present.
Councillor Ray Bisbee?
Present.
And me, Councillor John Holditch. I think I've already done the apologies, but so I've got them in the right place. Adrian Chapman, Charlotte Black, Gary Howson, and Alex Malon. All right. So, does anybody wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosure of interest? Anybody got any interest? No. We've been asked to approve the minutes of the meeting of the 10th of July as a correct record. Can I ask anyone who does not agree with that proposal to raise their hands, please? And the hands function. I don't see anybody going. To you, Mr. Covenants? No? Okay, I'll take them as read then. I see no objections. And anybody wish to speak on them? Any matters arising? Okay, on that basis, the recommendation that the minutes are approved is approved. An update action log has been included in published papers for this meeting, and officers are able to inform the board members whether they have been of benefit and any changes need to be made into the action log. Sent officers to advise changes and made in the action log for publication. This is where you're going to update from the previous workshop. This.
Well, certainly on the action log, I think we have the update for the work from the workshop as an agenda item, but from the action log, certainly number 3, considering how the board would engage with the public. We did that at the workshop. We have circulated the care home support plan to you before the board. On the temperature checks, I would say I haven't been able to find out much further on that apart from the advice given at the last meeting, although we know that certainly some places of worship are doing temperature checks and some other places, and it does seem to help with just emphasising the importance of COVID secure behaviours. That's action 5. And action 6, I am now receiving daily case data. So that daily information has started coming in.
Thank you. Officers, members, anything else you want to put across on this item? No. Thank you very much then. Do you wish me to vote on it one by one, or are you happy for me to take that as read, as there's been no objections? Right, I'll take it as read then. So I've lost a page. Help me, where am I going? Liz, I've lost a page. Can you?
I think you're on terms of reference now, Councillor Holditch.
All right, revised terms of reference. Okay. Can I invite Kate Parker, Head of Public Health and Business Programme, to introduce the revised terms of reference, please? Over to you, Kate. Kate? Is Kate Parker not there? I think you're mute, Money. I think you're mute. We're not hearing you.
Kate, try leaving and rejoining and see if that helps anything.
We lost her altogether now. Aha.
Councillor Holditch, we could go on to the item number 4 and then just come back to the terms of reference if you so wish.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea, don't you? Thank you very much for that suggestion. Everybody happy I'll go to 4 and come back to 3? Don't see anybody against that. So item 4. So Liz Robing, can I ask you to introduce the report, please?
That's fine. Yes, this report is just to update you on the work of the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Health Protection Board, which is the officer board which oversees the local outbreak control plan. So this paper provides you with some information on the local public health context, about the rate of COVID-19 cases in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, recognising that many cases are not tested for or diagnosed, particularly earlier on in the pandemic. So the diagnosed cases only present a partial picture of what's been happening. But we do know that if you look at the overall rates of COVID-19 cases in Peterborough and in Huntingdonshire, there have been more cases diagnosed over the whole course of the pandemic than the national average. And in Peterborough, that's been quite significantly higher. If we look at the more recent rates, which is the table that you have on page 15, that shows that in most of the Cambridgeshire districts, and we do have a rate for each district. If you look at the middle column, that's the weekly incidence rate from the 20th to the 26th of July. And most of those are not too far off the national average, or a bit below the national average. And they fluctuate a bit, different districts go up and down, but fairly average or below average picture. Whereas in Peterborough, as we know, we have a higher rate, which is more around 20 cases per 100,000. And we know that that's mainly working age people. So that's there in graph form on the next day and on the next page. And what you can see there is that there were a lot more cases back in April, May at the peak of the pandemic. And you can see for both Cambridgeshire and Peterborough that that's come down. And the orange line that you can see there is the weekly rolling average. And that shows that in both areas, actually, it's fairly flat since mid-June, though with some fluctuations. If we look at deaths and COVID-19 related deaths, what's quite positive looking at that over the 4 months, March to June, is that even though we had some areas with more cases of COVID-19, the actual rates of death from COVID-19 are generally lower than the national average in this area. And I think that does reflect some good practice amongst our local residents, particularly those who are more vulnerable in terms of some of the social distancing and other behaviours. So that is positive that the rates of death were lower, generally lower than average or similar to average in some cases. And the following table, which is on the top of page 17, we have actually, just have to check, yes, we yes, that's the all-cause deaths. And again, those are below or similar to average because perhaps not every case was diagnosed. And then we have a map which we can look at to show COVID-19 related deaths by middle super output area. That's on page, bottom of page 17. And that does show that maybe those numbers, and it is numbers, not rates, look to be a bit higher up in the north of Cambridgeshire, Fenland, East Huntingdonshire and some of central Peterborough, where you have very high rates in a small area. That would often be the result of residential homes or care homes within that area, rather than the overall rates of infection in that community. But that just gives you a bit more of a local picture around Cambridgeshire and Peterborough.
Okay. Have you finished?
Well, I could talk a little bit, it depends. I could say a little bit about the contain framework and a couple of other things, but I'm also happy just to take questions on the paper if you'd prefer that, Chair, because I'll take it as read.
Okay, members, if you're wishing to ask questions or comments, if you please raise your hand. Oh yes, Roger.
Thank you, Chair. Could I find it all very useful, very, very useful. But on the graphs, could we maybe just have the national average as well? Just to have some sort of indication of that so we can compare?
I can certainly take that back. I'm sure there would be a way to do that, yeah. National average curve, yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Haven't seen any more hands up. No. Do you want to carry on then, Liz?
Yes, just quickly to go through some key things that have happened since our last meeting. So the government published the COVID-19 contain framework on the 17th of July, and that gave some additional powers to upper tier local authorities and also explained how outbreak management would work between local authorities and the national government. So that was an important publication. And that gave upper tier local authorities some new powers to close premises, stop events or close down public spaces if there was a significant risk to public health from COVID-19. So there are quite a lot of conditions to those powers. There has to be a significant risk to public health. And certainly what we've been trying to do as officers in both Peterborough and Cambridgeshire is not to get to a position where we need to use those powers, because we think that for most premises or events, we would want to work very closely with the organisation involved on their risk assessment around COVID-19 or around the management of an outbreak if we had an outbreak in a premises, so that we had a collaborative approach and could agree together that a premises should close or an event not go ahead. And we have been following that line. If as upper tier local authorities do need to use those powers, we would need to inform national government, the Secretary of State, there would be a right of appeal and we would need to review after 7 days. So these powers are not to be used lightly, but they do mean that upper tier local authorities can move quickly in order to stop outbreaks. some of those powers were held before, but had to go through various processes and then go to a magistrate. This is much quicker potentially if it's really needed. And the powers around, people talk a lot about local lockdown, but the powers to close a street or a geographical area, or to shut down a whole sector of business, like say gyms or some sort of shop, those powers are still national and sit with national government, obviously in discussion, we would hope, with the local area, but we don't hold those lockdown powers locally. So I think it's important the public understands that there is some varied understanding around that, so it's good to make that transparent. So that's, and the contained framework also lays out where local authorities with higher rates of COVID will be areas of concern, enhanced support or national intervention. And Peterborough has been in the concern group because it has a higher rate of COVID-19, but it still has local leadership of the actions that we're taking to address that. So the national government is happy that we lead that locally, but obviously reporting back to them through the regional officers. So that's, I don't know if there's any questions on the contained framework.
Members, up to you. Please show with your blue hand. I don't see anybody. Nobody? Okay, well done. Now, you finished on that page, have you not?
Yes,
Right.
there's a bit more about implementing the local outbreak control plan, which is just laying out the arrangements, but I'm happy just to take questions on that if.
Right, any questions on that, folks? Okay, so do you agree to note? I don't see any objections to that, no? You got away lightly, Liz.
Okay.
And we'll make sure you don't next time. Okay. Kate, are you back?
I am. Can you hear me?
Can now, yes, please, go ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you. So apologies for that. I'm not sure what happened. So I'm bringing back to you the terms of reference that was presented at your last meeting. The changes that you agreed as a board at the last meeting were actually quite minor. There was an addition of a vice chair role, which I've included in the terms of reference. And if you agree that at this meeting, then due to democratic service processes, it will be next meeting that we will elect a vice chair for this particular board. And the other change that I made was the inclusion of Charlotte Black, Service Director for Adults and Safeguarding, as a member of this particular group. So they're the only changes that have been brought back. Clearly, we've just had a workshop in which we've discussed some further changes. So I am very happy to action those and bring those back to the next board meeting.
Okay, do any members got any questions on that? I think that's what we agreed. Did you want to highlight any of the changes we want making, folks?
So
Peter?
I think
Peter?
Thank you, John. Kate, well, everybody really. It's just that, do we really need to go through the whole process of having a vice chair? We've got two chairs as it is, sharing responsibility. So if one chair isn't there for one reason or other, the other chair will take it anyway. So do we really need a vice chair?
I think that's what it says, actually.
That's not how I'm reading it now. That's not how I read it. I mean, you know, we don't need a vice chair. We've got two chairs. That's what we agreed last time.
so at the
Wasn't it?
no, the proposal at the last meeting, I think, was somebody proposed to have a vice chair. So I changed it because we didn't have a vice chair for that very reason.
But we still got two chairs.
And then someone proposed. Yeah, we still have two chairs,
Well, that's
and councillors proposed at the last meeting to have a vice chair as well. So I changed the terms of reference to include a vice chair. It's entirely up to you if, as a group, if you decide that you don't want a vice chair now, that's absolutely fine. All I've done is included one line in there now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to go with the flow. I just got to do the need for it.
Yeah.
But if
Roger?
we agree, if we agree we do need it, then I'll go with it. Yeah.
It was in the minutes because I've taken the action from the minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Roger?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, my understanding, maybe I misunderstood last time, but my understanding was that we needed a vice chair for governance reasons, but I thought by default it would be the other chair if the nominated chair for that meeting couldn't make it, or something happened during the meeting. That's the way I took it, rather than having to specifically name a new vice chair. I thought it would.
So we can do that in the terms of reference then, and that bypasses the appointment. If we actually say in the terms of reference that so I'll check with Democratic Services because I'm not an expert in this field, but what I will do is I will word it so that it is just automatically the vice chair is the other chair who's not acting as chair in that meeting, and then and then we don't need to do an appointment because it's actually in the terms of reference. Absolutely, that's fine. Yeah, I'm happy to make those changes.
Thank you, Kate. I see there's general consensus with everything else. Yeah. Roger, you got your hand up. Was it new or still up? Thank you. Okay, so you have no objection, so we'll take these recommendations as carried then. No objection? Thank you. Okie doke. We'll go now to Wendy. See if you can get away as lightly as the rest. So Wendy, can you please provide the board with an oral update on this item, please?
I will. So I think we're going to do an update on the workshop, but I'm happy to talk a little bit about what we're doing at present, because it might lead quite nicely into how we want to develop our response to outbreaks, which we've discussed in length at the workshop prior to this meeting. So I just wanted to share, you probably all know that since we've had the COVID pandemic, we stood up what we call a county resilience group, and that comes under the Local Resilience Forum. And this county resilience group has got agencies and organisations from across the county, city and district councils. And this is an officer group. And that officer group have been working together to consider how they might respond to local outbreaks. There's been an awful lot of work done on that. So in each of the districts and the city, there is a named lead who's responsible for ensuring that we can stand up a team of people, which we're calling a rapid response team, if there is a local outbreak. So in the county, city and district council, officers, when they hear that there is an outbreak, they have links with agencies and organisations, including volunteers locally, who can support a local outbreak. And what those officers do, linking with appropriate agencies and organisations, is they go out to where the outbreak is and they provide information, advice, guidance and support on infection control. But very importantly, they also provide practical support if residents need to self-isolate. Because you can imagine being told in a local outbreak, if you're symptomatic or you've been tested and you're asymptomatic, that you have to stay at home and you haven't made any preparation, then you will have practical needs, i.e. you need food, so you need someone to shop for you. You may actually need to pick up some medication from your pharmacist and you can't do that. So that rapid response team will make sure that's in place. And I think, as we've been discussing at the workshop earlier, how we could enhance that response to local outbreaks is to involve local leaders and councillors, because obviously they have a lot of information about their local area. And I think that's something we're going to talk a little bit more about later. Each response is different depending on what that outbreak is and where it is. And what we are doing is learning from places like Peterborough, who've had local outbreaks, and what works. And I know Christine's going to talk about the communications that are incredibly important and how we use communications to actually share with people what they need to do to prevent outbreaks getting out of control. So I think I'll pass over to Christine to talk about some of the communications that we have used and we are working on.
Sorry, Wendy, we have to have questions to you first.
Oh, sorry.
No. Board members, have you got any questions of Wendy? No, thank you, Wendy. So Christine, over to you.
Hello, so just to introduce myself, I'm Christine Birchall and I'm Head of Communications at both Cambridgeshire County Council and Peterborough City Council. As part of the workshop that we've had before the meeting, I went through with members and officers the sorts of work that we've done specifically around the Peterborough outbreak, and the way that we had very much worked with local advocates, and we had worked with the intelligence that we knew so that we could identify the different characteristics of people who were testing positive, where they lived, what the risk groups were, what their particular occupations might be, so that we could absolutely tailor communications around that. And the conversations that we then had as a board was actually how do we make sure that that can work across the whole of Cambridgeshire. So should there be an outbreak in another area, how members really wanted to see this developed, so that this very tailored approach to communications, in particular prevention to start with, because if we can prevent people either catching the infection in the first place or prevent them spreading it to others, then we have less to deal with in outbreak terms. So who would give those messages? Who give those messages where people actually understand them and believe them and act upon them? Members were very interested in the use of local people who have got the real ear of the community. So we talked about local celebrities. We're using some of the players from Peterborough United Football Club, and they've been very helpful in spreading some of the messages. But we were talking about who the celebrities were in people's local communities, and actually engaging with members across the patch to say, you know your areas best, and you know who those people are that who attention will really be paid to. And actually members have commissioned us to go away and talk to all the members across both Peterborough City Council and Cambridgeshire County Council to say, we need you to sort of identify who those key people are so that we can get those messages out quickly in the right way and in the right language, not necessarily a foreign language, but just the way that people actually understand those messages, because councillors are the people who know that best. So I think that was a really key piece for me that came out of the workshop, is a piece of work that you've asked us to do, which we will take away and come back to you at a future member engagement board to report on the progress of that. I'm happy to take any questions about any of that or any of the communications that we're currently doing as part of the approach.
Right, members. I think that's what we wanted to get across. Val, you wanted to say something?
Thank you. I'd just like to congratulate you, Christine and team, about the discovery and the design of the communications that you described to us about what happened at Peterborough and the multiple complexity between workplaces, where people lived, who they mixed with, and how that enabled you to do a number of different things to help. And I think, not speaking for the board, but I think that gave me some reassurance that there's a smart set of things that can be done, but not the same in each other patch or each other outbreak. They need to be tailored and taken to those specific needs. But just to thank you and the team for that. At Healthwatch on our website, we've conveyed some of the information about getting a test and various other things throughout the campaign. And we've been amazed to see the number of hits for us on pure information pieces and not really that well promoted by us. The interest. So, you know, just want to support and combine with you where possible, where we can get messages to some people in the community that also might be very active in their communities as well in getting messages across to colleagues. But I've also got a challenge for you. Last time we met as a group and the meeting was on YouTube, and I had a look just before this meeting, and 89 people have viewed that YouTube, and I've been twice, so take off 2 of those for me. In terms of getting the information that this board discusses, the papers are really good. There might be more dynamic communications that we can produce in the future. you know, what are the plans to actually convey some key information to people about this board and what we're doing to help engagement with all the activities that are going on at the moment around our outbreak control.
I think that was
obviously a piece that I think we did pick up in the workshop, and I'm sorry I forgot to mention that. So one of the things that I was challenged on was actually how do people understand what might be happening in their own particular areas, and I updated members on work that's going on currently to look at having information on our website so people could drill down into their actual areas and see, you know, what advice is there for them if a particular issue is bubbling up. And we were talking about how we could increasingly make that so that people could understand areas of infection or areas where there are particular restrictions or particular information about, you know, good things or support that's happening. So we're looking at that, but we also talked about the information that we put up regularly as part of Peterborough City Council, because it's an area of concern, and making sure that that is properly publicised so that it links back to this board and comes from the member-led engagement board, so that actually local people can understand that information, where that information is coming from, and is something that they then could pick up and come back to this board to question them on. So I think if the public don't know what they could do with this board, it might make few of them want to come and watch. So if there's a, you know, it's that sort of thing. So it's making that loop, which I take that challenge and I'll take it away and see what we can do with it.
And can I be as bold as to ask if there's a timeline around that expectation to get some website materials together?
6 o'clock.
The information that we're going to put up on the front of the websites will be we are doing every week now in Peterborough. We will look at that for Cambridgeshire as well. In terms of the building of the postcode system, we're working with some partners and LGSS and North Hants and various other people. So I don't know the timeline of that, but I will. I can report outside this meeting and tell everybody what the timeline is for that.
Thank you very much.
Any more questions of Christine? No, don't see any. You know, we're asked to have a discussion. I think probably we've just done that. So, and there being no other people wishing to speak, I'll move to number 6. Is that correct? Okay, we don't have any petitions. They're normally at the front of the meeting, I think, but never mind. So we haven't received any of those. And the date of the next meeting is to be confirmed. But I think we actually agreed something on meetings and interim meetings, didn't we, Liz? To do them on Zoom?
We agreed that we would try to align meetings of this board with meetings of the Health and Wellbeing Board core subcommittee, so we might well line up the next meeting with that. But also, if because this is an engagement board and not a committee as such, a decision-making committee, that does mean that if there are issues of concern, we are able to call a meeting of this board very quickly. We don't have to have the normal 10 days notice and so on. So we'll try and align the next meeting with a Health and Wellbeing Board subcommittee. But if we need to meet in the interim on an urgent basis, then we can call a meeting at any time, basically.
And that ought to be recorded. That would be a virtual meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've covered that. Everybody happy that we've covered everything? Okay, I'll declare the meeting closed then. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Have a